Certainly want to bring to all of you regards from Eretz Yisrael. I just got back on Sunday morning from Eretz Yisrael on a 10-day trip. It really was an incredible trip to see as I said many times, the power of Torah. The power of Torah and the power of the human being to make the right decisions and to move and to pick oneself up from a very, very sort of stagnant, consistent position and to respond and to rise to the challenge of what's out there for them in terms of opportunities is something incredible to see. And when you connect, I forget the exact expression, but when you connect opportunity with some type of initiative, I forgot the exact saying, but that's when you see success and leadership is basically capitalizing on what presents itself in front of you. That's the key to a special person. That's the key to greatness. Everybody said we all have to see ourselves as being part of that greatness. If we're putting our heads down or just sort of thinking that somebody's talking to somebody else, it's a big mistake. Greatness is meant for each and every one of us. We are told in this week's Parsha, Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. God did not exempt anyone when He told the Jewish people who they were and what they're capable of doing. Nobody was exempted. He didn't say teenagers are out. He didn't say people from this neighborhood or that community or that city are out. Every single Jew. Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. You need to be a great nation. A holy nation. Prime for greatness. And it's about readying yourself and being open to the signs and to the signals of what's out there. Vayishma Yisro, Rabbi said, we read in the beginning of this week's Parsha. It's a classic musavart that I want to share with you. One that you need to remember. One that you need to know and be able to repeat. Certainly it's a beautiful concept to repeat at the Shabbos table, but more importantly, it's one you need to remember. And if you'll say in a couple of years, oh, it's Yisro, you're going to say Vayishma Yisro, that's great. I don't think I say this every year. Maybe I should. Vayishma Yisro, Rashi asks a very fundamental question. Yisro heard, and he came. What made him come to the desert? Ma shmua shama abba, Rashi says. What did Yisro hear that motivated him to wake up, to pick himself up from his very comfortable surroundings in Midian? He had his 3-car garage, he had a satellite TV, he had everything he needed. He had his iPhone 10, if that's what the latest one is, and he didn't need anything else. So why did he pick himself up? Vayishma Yisro, Rashi asks the obvious fundamental question. Ma shmua shama abba. What did Yisro hear that motivated him to pick himself up and come into the desert? And Rashi's answer is a very interesting answer. One that begs a question. You want to know what Yisro heard, says Rashi? Look at the Rashi yourself. He heard about Kriyas Yamsov and Milchemes HaMolek, Gesundheit. He heard about Kriyas Yamsov and Milchemes HaMolek. And the Mefarshim asked, the Bali Musar asked the question. I don't get this, Rashi. You heard about Kriyas Yamsov and Milchemes HaMolek? I get Kriyas Yamsov. I get that. If you're sitting in your lounge chair and you're watching your, whatever it is, your NBA ticket, and all of a sudden this program is interrupted by special announcement. Okay? The Jewish people have just crossed the Red Sea. A miracle of miracles just took place. All of the waters in the lands of different places split. This was a monumental, earth-shattering event. I get it. So Yisro says, "Hey, this is something special. I got to see this. This is what you call this is a big deal. This is like the guy who they're making a commercial and an actor shows up in the mini mart. We got to run. We got to see. There's no joke." If an actor was spotted in Coffee Bean, we got to go. This is a big deal. Hollywood showing up at Coffee Bean. Obviously, I'm joking, but the point is there are certain things that we feel, I have to see. I can't miss this. So I get that Kriyas Yamsov was a motivating factor for Yitro. He wanted to see the action. He wanted to be on the front lines. But where in the world does a Milchemes HaMolech play a role? Why would Milchemes HaMolech be a motivating factor for Yisro to come? Milchemes HaMolech was a war. We've seen wars before. We remember, not you guys, but we remember a lot of the old fogies. You remember the 6-Day War. Remember the Yom Kippur War. We've seen other battles. We've seen other situations where you outsmart or you outmaneuver your enemy. And even though, of course, it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not an obvious miracle. So we beat them. Okay, let's go on. Why would Rashi put this event called Milchemes HaMolech, the battle of defeating Amalek, why would this be in the same category as Kriyas Yamsuf? It's a great question to ask your family at the Shabbos table. What does Rashi mean? And the answer that's given by the great Bali Musar of the earlier generations is that it was not the two miracles, Rabbi Isai. Listen to this very carefully. It was not the two miracles of Kriyas Yamsuf and Milchemes HaMolech. That's not what motivated Yisro to come. He didn't say to himself, these two miracles took place, so I now have to see more miracles. No. What motivated him to come, Rabbi Isai, what made him pick himself up, pick his head up, wake up, and realize what's going on in this world, the reason why he came, was because they realized that look what happened with these two events, Rabbi Yisai. It was the proximity of these two events that motivated him to come. It was seeing that right after Kriyas Yamsuf, you can have a Milchemes HaMolech. Yisro saw the headlines. And a few days after he was aware, when he was interrupted with his flash, the news flash, that the water split, and the Jewish people escaped from Egypt, the impossible place, the ironclad land that allowed nobody to ever escape, and the Jewish people walked through that sea. And a few days later, you had a Milchemes HaMolech. That's what motivated Yisro to come. He said, how could that happen? How could it be that right after a miracle like this, you can have a people like Amalek, intelligent? They were not stupid people. They were intelligent people. And they went ahead and they attacked the very recipient of this amazing miracle. What does that show me? Yisro said, what does that show? Rabbi said, shows something very fundamental. That I don't care what you see. Many times people have said over the years, oh, if I see miracles, if I saw this, and if God did this to me and God did that to me, if He answered me this, He answered me that would be different. Not necessarily. You can stare down an open miracle, and if you don't want to move, you don't have to move. And the fact that Yisro was motivated to come and to see what's going on is because he recognized, if I don't do something right now, when I feel that inspiration, when I'm ready to get closer to Kodesh Baruch Hu, and certainly a miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf does that for a person. And then similar to the Oz Yashir that we read it last week, that the Oz Yashir reminds us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when He did a miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf, Oz Yashir, right then and there, the Jewish people needed to do something. We sit back and say, that's great. Wow, that's fantastic. Guys are learning, Torah is great, we're special, Mamlechas Kadosh, and we hear all these wonderful ideas. We just simply go back to the same old, and we're not ready to advance. We're not ready to push ourselves. We're not ready to grab that inspiration and do something about it. That's a tragedy. Yisro did not want that to happen. Yisro was not ready to become Amalek. He was not ready to say, wow, that's really great, but then 3 days later, it's life as usual, and I'm ready to attack the very nation that was the recipient of that miracle. That can't happen. So therefore he said, I need to move. I need to pick myself up. I need to go to explore the opportunities that are presented here for me. Everybody say, that's a sign of greatness. I say this story, I don't think I said it this year, but I say this story almost every year. And the truth, there's a story, every story really has a number of different angles to it. But the story I'll say very quickly, because a lot of you remember it, I'm sure. But the story about Gary, can we... story about the kid Gary who is the worst guy in school. Story about Gary who every teacher was pulling their hair out. What are we going to do with Gary? The story about Gary who on a March day decides to all of a sudden go home, come back, and becomes a different kid. And by the time the end of the year was over, Gary became not only did he go from an F- student to an A+ student, he became a model kid. This kid, Gary, was always in the principal's office, always making trouble, always getting suspended, always getting detentions. We don't have anybody like that here, but some schools do have Garys. And they're always in trouble. And nobody could believe how Gary made such a turnaround. How did Gary become the nightmare student to the dream student? How'd that happen? And sure enough, at the end of the year, they went to the principal and they said, Mr. Friedman, whatever, okay, how did it happen? We sent Gary to you that day in March, and he was suspended, or he was sent to the office for 110th time that year, and you had a conversation with him, and then you sent him home, and he came back the next morning, and he was a different kid. He was literally an angel. What happened? He said, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It was a typical conversation that I had with Gary. So they had to figure out what it was that was going on, and they decided to go to Gary. And they went to Gary, and Gary said, yeah, I remember that conversation. I remember that day. So what happened? What made you turn around? What made you become so special? What made you become this incredible student that you are now the top kid in the entire school? You went from worst to first in a matter of months. And he says, not much happened, but one thing happened. I was sitting in Mr. Freeman's office, and I was talking to him, and he was talking to me. It was a typical conversation. Gary, you got to turn it around. Gary, got to do this. Gary, got to do that. And in the middle of the conversation, the intercom went off, and the secretary interrupted the conversation by saying, Mr. Friedman, a parent is on the phone, and she'd like to talk to you. And the principal said to the secretary, please tell her I will call her back. I'm talking to somebody very important. And as I walked home after that conversation, those words started reverberating. I'm talking to somebody very important. He's talking about me. I'm very important. I know who. I now realize that actually the principal sees me as being very important. And somehow those words kept reverberating in his mind. So by the time he went back to school, he said, you know what, if I'm very important, let me act like somebody very important. Let me learn like somebody very important. Let me believe in myself like somebody very important. And he became somebody very important. Now, it's a wonderful story about self-esteem and believing in yourself. But there's another element to that story as well. And I know a lot of educators hear that story and say, oh, so I'm going to go over to my worst student, pat him on the back and say, hey, by the way, Yankel, okay, you're very important. So it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. It might not be an automatic. Obviously, it has to come at the right time, in the right situation. But more importantly, Rabbi Say, it's so easy for Gary to have heard those words and simply say, okay, so I'm very important, let's go on. Let's put the head back down, let me go back to sleep, let's cover my head with the hood, and everything is good. Why shake things up? Why not be the exact same person I've always been? That's who I am. But Gary did something incredible, Rabbi Say. He allowed a situation, he allowed that particular moment in time where he felt that stirring of his heart, where he felt that special spark. He says, I'm not going to let it be business as usual. I'm going to change. And the people who change, and the people who stand up, and the people who respond to various situations and don't allow themselves to stay stagnant as to where they are, those are the people that make a mark and make a difference in this world, Rabbi Say. And you can tell sometimes from people's body language, from people's attitudes. Am I going to internalize what's going on around me and actually make a difference? And allow these words, and allow my learning, allow my experiences in life to actually move me to another level? Or is it simply going to be, nah, talk to the hand? Yisro recognized a little too much activity. Yisro recognized, I can't let that happen to me. And when Klal Yisrael was told, before they said the words Nasa v'Nishma, they were told of how special they were. They were told about how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves them. They were told, Klal Yisrael, you're not like anybody else. You are unique. You have a great mandate. Your mandate is to teach the truth. Your mandate is to make a Kiddush Hashem. Your mandate is to go out in the world and teach Torah, no matter what profession you're in. Not just as a Rav, not just as a rabbi, but as a doctor or lawyer or a computer analyst or a politician. You name it, whatever your choice of careers, make a Kiddush Hashem. I don't necessarily agree with what Ben Shapiro said, but what he said was very profound. The greatest convincing point that he has about knowing this is true, and why he wears a yarmulke everywhere he goes, and he makes a constant Kiddush Hashem, because he recognized, where do you get this morality from? Well, how did the world come to the place where it has an understanding of what true morality and sensitivity and civilization is all about? It came about through the Torah. This is the only truth that exists in the world. He didn't want to go back 3,000 years. I think you certainly can go back 3,000 years. And you could prove things from the way things went down then or didn't go down that way. And you can look at the words of the Torah and analyze and prove, but that's for a different time. But that very notion that we are the light onto the world, that these morals, these values, these mitzvos have been the foundational principle of civilization, and that's how we got there, that's pretty powerful in its own right. So when we recognize that, and it's business as usual, we don't take a look at ourselves and maybe say, hey, can I do a little bit better? Do I not need to challenge myself? Do I not need to maybe pick my head up and recognize what exactly it is that I could do? To do that, Rabbi Yisai, is to fall into the trap of Amalek. The trap of, it's all happenstance. It's all coincidental. There are no special moments. There are no special times. And yes, I can see a miracle and forget about it and attack that very people just a few days later. So those words have to resonate in our hearts. When we had a Shabbaton, and 2 Shabbatons, we had one for the girls and one for the boys. We had a Shabbaton for the girls. There was a speaker who came in to speak to the girls. And a very well-known, world-renowned speaker, and she said a story of the Baal Shem Tov. I never really say over Baal Shem Tov stories, because I don't really know too many Baal Shem Tov stories. But this one hit me very powerfully. I think it speaks very much to this message. You are a special people. And you need to rise to the occasion. You need to be that Vayishma Yisro. You need to be that person who hears that message and responds to it. And the story is about a fellow who went to the Baal Shem Tov. What's going on? The story is about a person who went to the Baal Shem Tov, and he said something very similar that I hear over the years from different kids. And he says, Baal Shem Tov, great Rebbe, great holy tzaddik, I keep hearing about this thing called Gilu Eliyahu. I keep hearing about this thing called Eliyahu reveals himself to people. And we know that it exists. Eliyahu Navi does come in different generations, and he does amazing things. In fact, there's a famous story about the Chavetz Chaim and another tzaddik they were fighting about who should go through the door first. So the tzaddik says to the Chavetz Chaim, Rebbe, you got to go first. He says, no, but you're a big tzaddik, you got to go first. And they're fighting back and forth, who goes first. So finally the tzaddik says to the Chavetz Chaim, Rebbe, you have to go first. Not only are you the Chavetz Chaim, but you had a Gilu Eliyahu. Eliyahu Navi came to you and revealed himself to you. And the Chavetz Chaim, without flinching, says back to the tzaddik, you have to go first. Because how do you know that I had a Gilu Eliyahu? The fact that you know that out of Gil Elio means that you're greater and you should go first. So they fought it out, and I don't know exactly how that ended. But the point is, we know that there's such a thing called Gil Elio. Elio Navi does come. So this fellow, this very simple Jew, goes over to the Baal Shem Tov and says, I also want a Gil Elio. Why is it only reserved for the great holy people? I want a Gil Elio. So what do I have to do to get a Gil Elio? So you think of it, you get a question like that, you basically throw the guy out of your house and say, you know what? Shmendrik, when you get to be on that level, you get a Gil Elio. No, he didn't say that. The Baal Shem Tov said, I'll tell you what. You want a Gil Elio? I'll tell you what you have to do. There's a neighboring town. Go to the town with a basket full of food before Shabbos and sit in the back of shul, and you will have a Gil Elio. That's great. Sounds fantastic. This is easy. And sure enough, he goes to the shul, he goes to the neighboring town, brings a basket full of food, sits in the back of shul, waiting for an invitation, and no invitation. Everybody leaves. He's there apparently alone. The last guy's about to close the door. He says, oh, hey, hello, I'm here. There's no invitation on what's going on here. He says, well, I guess we're not into that, but there's a widow and her son in town. And they would be happy to have you. You have some food. Go over there and you'll sleep in shul, like many of the people did in those days. You'll sleep in shul and you'll spend Shabbos. You'll eat Shabbos with the almana. Pays to hear this. So he goes to the almana, spends Shabbos there. He's waiting for this epiphany. He's waiting for this big new. Where's Elio? Shabbos comes, Shabbos goes, nothing happens, very, very upset, goes back to the Baal Shem Tov, Rebbe. Nothing happened. I don't know. It was very uneventful Shabbos, and what are you talking about? He says, don't worry, just do it again. Go next week. Goes next week, the same deal, goes to the back of the shul, no invitation, guy's about to leave, a basket full of food, goes over to the almana's house, sits, eats with the almana, sleeps in shul. No, hello, where are you, Elio? Where are you? Nothing. Goes back to the Baal Shem Tov, really not a happy camper, and he says, Rebbe, nothing happened. He says, trust me, go back another week. Goes back another week, but this time he figures, listen, the guy's a smart Jew, Jews are sharp. What am I going to go to the back of the shul, wait for an hour till everybody leaves, not to get an invitation, and then go to the almana's house? I'll drop the food off straight by the almana. And let me just go straight to the widow's house and drop the food off. So sure enough, Friday afternoon, soon before Shabbos, he goes over to the almana. He's about to knock on the door. And as he's about to knock on the door, he hears the kid calling out to the mother, Mommy, what's going to be? It's a couple hours before Shabbos, so we have no food in the house. What's going to be? And he hears the mother answer back, don't worry. Elio HaNavi came to us in the last 2 weeks and brought us food. We'll be taken care of again. And right before he knocked on that door, he recognized that the Baal Shem Tov was telling him something very, very amazing. You want a Gil Elio? Be that Gil Elio. Because what is a Gil Elio? What is the concept of a divine revelation? It's being a person or a force being in the right place at the right time to make a difference in somebody's life. And maybe he was a little bit debunking the Gil Elio concept, as this is really not a Hasidic story. It's sort of more of a Litvischer type of story. But the point is that the Baal Shem Tov was saying, you want miracles? Be that miracle. Make that miracle. Make a difference in somebody's life. Be that Mamlechas Kanan V'Goy Kadosh. Don't wait for something to happen. Don't be an observer. Get in there. Make that difference. Roll up your sleeves. Be that Yisro who's going to get up and make a difference and say, I'm going to do something. Everybody said there are two types of people in this world. Those who roll up their sleeves and say, I'm in a special position. I'm going to make the most of it. I can tell you again, I know it's hard to do that here when you sort of go through the constant schedule of the ongoing situation called school and high school, and the regimen and the schedule and the consistency and sometimes the monotony. I get that. But when you go to Eretz Yisrael and you see what people do, you see when the opportunity in a special place, in a special country with special kedusha presents itself in a Makam Torah, you see these incredible young men rising to the occasion, answering that call, recognizing who they are. That's really inspiring. That's something that we should take into our hearts and recognize. That's the Kriyas Yamsuf of today's world. Seeing Klal Yisrael rise, seeing Klal Yisrael answer, seeing Klal Yisrael become great, and saying, you know what, that's my mandate too. Not just their mandate. We can look into, that's great. You're always learning up a storm. He's an incredible tzaddik. He's davening incredible Shemon Esreis. Look at that guy. Look at this guy. Look at that. Look at this. That's fine. You can do that. And say, what does that have to do with me? Well, you can say, I'm that guy too. Because I have my special mission. And I too have been given this mandate by Kadosh Baruch Hu. I'm not going to be a Amalek. I'm going to be Yisro. For Hashem, let's answer that call. We can do it even now. We can make changes and we can make tremendous significant strides even in the monotony of high school, so to speak. Rabbi said, but certainly when we have those great opportunities, like going to Eretz Yisrael, let's seize it, let's grab it, Bez Hashem. Go mechayil chol, that's chus pizocha, to be as Mashiach, and